Yeah, well, just to switch gears again, what are some things that you guys see that people do that you dislike? What are, like, don't do this on Twitter?
People who aren't funny, who try to be funny. It's definitely the worst.
Right.
Sorry.
Everyone was like, oh, God.
No, I mean, not like, just like making jokes, kind of feeling the need to make a joke about everything.
Every event.
That is kind of popping up on Twitter. I don't know. I follow a lot of politics people, and they're the worst. Like any story that happens, they have to put in their one-liner, and they're almost all the same joke, but slightly different.
Always, right. You're not all Dave Weigel. Like, just don't do it, right? Yeah.
I think people should attribute fairly and properly and correctly. I'm not a big fan of people on Twitter finding something, sort of proclaiming it as their own without going back to the original source. I think that often happens a lot. And I think, too, like, if you're tweeting way too much, like, let's say you're American Idol, and this is not to knock you, let's say 10 tweets in the hour, I could live with that, but like 737 might be a little difficult to swallow.
You know what I hate, actually? I actually don't check Twitter on Monday morning. So if, like, someone died on Monday morning, I'd be kind of like shit out of luck, because the spoilers from Sunday night television.
Oh yeah, same here.
I cannot deal with it. It's just like, but also it's just like, and I get it, like, we should all at least steal someone's Go account, but enough. Like, it will literally be, especially like the type of like feed I have. It's just like miles of people snapping.
So maybe this is a kind of just to take away. Don't just because everyone's tweeting about something does not mean you have to tweet about it. In fact, don't do it. You know, like.
But so the only thing I would sort of, the only thing I would gently suggest is that I think that sometimes that's the fun of it, right? I mean, part of it's actually the idea of being part of a kind of larger shared community. And that goes back to, like, you know, as you guys have all been saying, I mean, it's an incredibly extensible, incredibly open technology that many different people use in very different ways. And I think that that's kind of the nature of it, and so that's kind of part of the anarchy of it. And one of the things is that you might like someone's occasional observations about this, and you're going to find their observation on something else kind of very distasteful, which is part of what I think is neat. So literally with regard to what you were saying, I was thinking, what a wonderful tool to discover people you thought were people you liked. And gosh, actually, that's incredibly thoughtless behavior. You've helped me in life. I will perhaps socialize with you less because these spoilers speak to a deep flaw in your character. And that is kind of useful in its own way, but, you know, kind of think about these like shared events. Like, you know, I think, you know, I live here in New York City, and yet kind of during the Wisconsin recall, you know, my political views aren't necessarily widely shared here in New York, but to kind of be part of a community of other people who kind of share that sensibility, people who care about it in the same way. And then really those are oftentimes just conversations that are not public conversations, but, you know, kind of where you're tweeting to each other. So they're semi-public in that way. And there's something like really kind of nurturing and fun. And that's kind of why during these shared events, but I definitely take your point, like that can be annoying, but it's also like, you know, so you know, kind of, it really depends on kind of, and be mindful of kind of who you're talking to. I think that's, you know, it's important.
Oh, I was going to say, is there any one thing that people could tweet that would make you unfollow them instantly? Because I was trying to think, that's kind of like an important point, is that there's nothing where it's like one thing usually where I'm like, I'm going to unfollow this person.
If a person does 3 tweets in a row, that's that sort of like YOLO, like, if it's like YOLO FOMO, which is like, you only live once, fear of missing out, and all it is designed to instill envy amongst others, I will unfollow you guys. Like, it's just too much. You're gross. Stop being so gross.
What's the genius of the humble brag?
Right.
That's why humble brag is amazing. Yeah,
it's true.
Totally.
The one that's, like, I think really good practical advice, that I think especially if you're just starting out, is I would find whatever feeds you're following, if it turned out that you really like these feeds, I would go through who those feeds are following, and that's a way to start building up the people you're following, whether it's a friend, whether it's a media colleague, whether it's just somebody you admire. See who they're following, because there's a really good chance that you are like-minded intellectually, politically, socially, and it's a good way, I think, often to find some really interesting feeds that you would normally not find.
Oh, and you can have a private feed and a public feed. That's something to keep in mind. You know, for some people that proves very convenient.